Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Get Jashed. It's actually the first episode of the year, so we are celebrating that in 2025. And today I have with me Tom Rawlins, who's the founder of Rawlins Media, a content creation agency that aims to evoke emotive stories and deliver them to their intended audiences, which is the whole thing. So thank you so much for your time for joining me today, Tom.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for having me, and very excited to be the first cab off the rank in 2025.
Yeah, I love starting strong, and I love starting with a guest as well for the year because it has a new energy and a fresh energy. Um, so I was we connected, and I was reading more about your work and your background. So with your agency, you've been doing that for quite a while. But I noticed there was a little line that said you grew up in a backpackers hostel. So
Yes.
I think we'll start there because I find that really interesting. You've mentioned you tell stories through your work. How do you think that that experience influenced how you see other people's stories?
Yeah, it did in a big way. And I'll just rewind a bit and give you a bit of context as to how I ended up in a backpackers hostel with my parents. Um, so I grew up on a farm in regional Victoria and up until about high school. And then at that point, my mum and dad sat me down and they said, "So, Tom, a family friend of ours has offered us to manage a backpackers hostel in town." And this is a small country town, by the way, 4,000 people.
Mm.
And so even I was only in year seven, but I could understand, like, hang on, for starters, how is a backpackers hostel going to work in this tiny town? Like, who's coming to this town? Nobody. It's not on the map. It's not on the coast. It's not a well-known place. So, first of all, bad business idea, mum and dad. But second of all, I didn't want to move away from the farm. I grew up on this beautiful farm with space and friends and ostriches and cows and sheep and I had just a lovely childhood. So I didn't really want to share my house with strangers.
That's
Essentially,
fair. I wouldn't want to
yeah.
either.
So as cool as it sounds, I was actually quite introverted, and I didn't really I the idea of living in a backpackers hostel kind of scared me, at
Mm.
that early teenage years. But anyway, mum and dad said yes. They took up the job of managing a backpackers hostel, and we moved into the premises. Half of it was our house, and the other half was the backpackers hostel, as well as a bar that was just open to the public and the backpackers, and there was a pool table. And so essentially, I lived in a pub, backpackers hostel type of setup.
Every
And
teenager's dream, right? every
so,
teenage every teenage boy's dream.
well, yeah, it turned out to be. That's another story. But it was amazing. I look back on it now and go, wow, what a lucky and what an amazing opportunity I had to, as a country boy, to actually invite the world into my house and meet all these different characters from Sweden to Holland, UK, Ireland, Germany. Yeah, just an incredible experience. And I think I was about 16 and I was behind the bar pouring beers for backpackers all around the world and having conversations and learning how to have conversations and how to connect.
Mm.
And they were teaching me things and telling me about their experiences around the world and the people they've met. And it really opened my mind to the world and to how people live and communicate. So very lucky to be in that position.
Yeah, and it's such a fortunate experience to have, especially when you're young. I mean, like everyone sort of says, like, oh, people should travel because then they learn more. But you didn't even have to leave your own property. Like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know,
the world came to me,
yeah.
and I was very lucky. And it was a the reason why backpackers would come to Maffra, which is what it's called, the
Mm.
small town in Gippsland in Victoria, is because they did seasonal vegetable picking work.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So during the summer months, we'd be inundated with backpackers from all around the world. A lot of lovely young ladies, and all my friends would visit a lot more in the summer for some reason. I'm not sure why. It was really strange.
Interesting that.
Yeah,
That's such a weird phenomenon, I'm sure.
I was very popular. I was extremely
Yeah,
popular.
I bet. That's so
Um,
good. Like, I think there's something about how when we do witness other ways of experiencing life and other experiences in life that other people have had, it makes it easier to understand that we all do have a different experience of life, right? Like that must have been one of those experiences for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to stereotype small country towns too much, but if you can imagine some people who grow up in those situations, I'm one of them, you don't have those experiences. You might not have seen as much of the world, and even going to a city can be a bit of an experience in itself. So the fact that our whole town experienced this amazing influx of characters and people from all around the world was, I think, an amazing positive and experience for everyone to connect with people of all walks of life. And you find out we're all pretty similar anyway, and we've all got connections at the end of the day.
There's always something to find that is similar in other people as well. And it makes sense to me that you've gone into something like a media agency where you capture and you tell other people's stories as well. Like to me, from the outside, it looks like such a clean line from having this formative experience to, oh, like what will I do for work, and what, like, you know, and leaning towards how that happens.
For sure. And like, I'll give you a very small example of something I just remember. It always stuck with me, noticing when I was at the bar and I saw two people talking, and one of them was this really tall Dutch guy. He was like 7 foot tall, but he was a gentle giant and very very quiet, very insular, and was just a kind, gentle guy. And then there was a drunk Aussie at the bar, I think, and he was you know, talk, a few beers, and then, you know, he's like, "Why are you so quiet, mate? Why are you so quiet?" And obviously, that's the last thing you should be saying to a quiet person, or it just makes them withdraw even more. And just, I think that's just one example, but little experiences like that where I could see the reactions and the what happens in conversation, you know, when alcohol's introduced as well, but just between two people from different places. And yeah, I think I somewhere in my mind have taken that away and buried it in my subconscious, and yeah, and use that maybe in my career at different points.
Yeah. Well, like your work now, as you've sort of as you as you've said, as you share on all of your platforms and everything, like you tell stories and communicate, or help businesses in particular, but people communicate through stories. What is something that speaks to you about how we communicate and tell stories via media in particular? Because we know it's everywhere. Like, can't escape it. So
yeah, it's everywhere. And you know, we're inundated with content every day. We sort of don't make the TikTok type of content, or that a lot of short form, like in your face. I guess a lot of our content might be a brand story or a video about a business or an individual, which is great because there's no time limit on it. There's no boundaries in terms of creativity, or what you can do and tell. So yeah, the sky's the limit in how you go about doing that. But in terms of storytelling, I guess the important thing for people when telling their stories is that they need to think about the audience and how they might be able to resonate with the story, how they can walk in the shoes of the person telling the story a little bit. And in that way, it empowers the audience, and that's the most important thing. So everyone's got a story to tell. Everyone's got a great story, and everyone's been on a journey in one way or another. But it's sort of, I guess, if you're putting it on camera and putting it out there to the world, how's it going to help others? How can others see themselves in you? And so I think that's something I always remind people to do if they're telling their story. Yeah, how can you empower the other person, and how can they resonate with your story?
It's almost like it's a gift to the audience in that way, because like I was gonna say, I imagine, I know there's like an element of vulnerability in putting, you know, your face out there, or your story out there, or your, you know, however it is out there. So I imagine, you know, like you probably work with people who might feel a bit of that vulnerability, but I also wonder if it makes it an easier sort of mental switch when there is this shift from making it almost like making it about us instead of making it about the audience and going, oh, what is the gift that I'm giving the audience? Because like you said, it can empower an audience. It can, yeah, like it can empower someone and with their own decision to purchase those goods or services from that business, but it can also elicit feelings and like and confidence in people who watch it because they see someone else doing it.
For sure, for sure. And just taking two steps back from where you get to tell your story, and you mentioned it yourself, vulnerability. If you can imagine, in our day to day, we set up big lights, we put a microphone there, we put the camera up on sticks, and all of a sudden there's a big camera staring at you. And okay, tell your story. Like it's an intimidating scenario. And we don't do it like that, by the way. We don't say just tell your story. But if we rewind a bit and step back from that, it's important that people can come into that space calm and relaxed and in a space where they can tell their story and they feel calm and not just shitting themselves in front of
Yeah.
the camera. Because I've interviewed hundreds of people over the years, and I would say 90+% of people are really intimidated and are feeling extremely vulnerable in front of the camera. So the number one thing I do is make sure they feel calm and relaxed and safe to tell their story. So that's the most important thing for me, because otherwise it's just too difficult.
And
Yeah.
it would make your job harder too. Like,
Yeah.
you're trying to sort of help them and pull this out of them and help them with this. But if you're not helping them with that first part of the calm and the relax, then
Yeah.
it gives you less to work with, right?
Oh, for sure. There's a practical component. I'm looking at it through the lens of an editor.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I'm filming, I'm in my brain, I'm editing and I'm going, okay, we can use that, or they're not totally calm. Should we take a break? Do they need a water? So there's all these things going on in the back of the mind going, can this be as good as it can be? Even just from an editing point of view, are they talking a million miles an hour and not giving me any break to actually cut the video? Are they, often we have to say, slow down. It's okay. Take a breath, take a moment. Hey, I love how you said that part. Let's go back there and just say that again. Just slow it down and emphasize this part of your story. So there's so much directing and making them feel at ease. And that can happen through direction. So listening is really important, but sometimes people respond. Well, a lot of the time people respond really well when you're in charge and you can give them direction and go, I love what you're saying. What you're saying is perfect, and you're really hitting it. But if you just said it like this, go for it. And don't over direct, don't give them heaps, but just give them a little tidbit and then go, you take it away because you're owning this. But do it like that. Yeah, just little nudges in the right direction can definitely help tell their unique story.
I think even that bit there like helps people understand what the role of the director in these sort of scenarios is as well. Like as like as someone who owns a business or runs a business, like of people that are like, well, I'll just do that on my own. Like, why would I get someone else to direct me to? And it's because of exactly what you're doing. It's a bit like coaching of like, but you are the creative direction that is seeing what they're not seeing to then help support them in that. It's like it's different. We all think of like movie directors. It's the same thing in that way of, oh yeah, like how you said that, but just this little tweak or this little moment.
I'm fascinated about how we I don't know, the energy that a camera can create and that intimidation of that feeling of this is going out somewhere. What I'm saying right now is going to be viewed by other people, and people change. People, if they can't get into a complete space of relaxation, they change. So it's really important to get them comfortable with the camera. Maybe they film themselves to begin with and just get used to that dynamic. Because it's different.
it's so interesting. I even noticed that in myself these days. Like I've spent a long time, like many years in front of some version of a camera. Usually it's my phone.
Mm.
But like I've sort of noticed the difference because every time, like every now and then, whenever I do sit in front of like someone else's camera looking at me, it's almost like it's a difference of if I don't know the framing. I was going to say if I can't see myself as I'm doing it, which is the opposite of what a lot of other people say. A lot of people are like, oh, if I can see myself, I'm distracted. Whereas I'm like, oh, if I can see myself, that I'm kind of just connected and I know where I am in space and in the room.
Yeah.
I think what it really is I've worked really well when if I know the framing of it. And if I don't know the framing of it and it's someone else's camera sitting there, there's something about it that like I'm an awkward person. Like there's something about it that immediately makes me go like, what do I do with my, what do I do with this body? Whose body is this? What am I doing? And it's so interesting.
Yeah, I think you and I sound very similar in that because I'm the same. If I do a video of myself, I'm so self-critical. It's a sense of control as well. It's like I want to control exactly how this is going to go out, which is
but I'm
has
totally
its pros
okay
and
with
cons.
it at the same time. Like I'm so much more at ease. It's really weird.
If you see it, you feel
Yeah.
at ease. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a bit the same. I'll need to see things before they go anywhere.
Yeah.
And that's my control nature coming out.
Yeah, it probably is that sort of element of um if I know it, then I can control it, then I can relax into it. It's such a weird dichotomy, but yeah, I can see that and I embrace it. But yeah, you're right. It is fascinating because I've also tried to help other people, like not in your capacity at all, but just encourage other people when they're sitting in front of the camera. It's like you're just talking to me, like you're just talking to me. Everything's going to be fine.
Yeah, and I think like we're so hard on ourselves. I think like we're self-critical, and yeah, we're a bit too harsh on ourselves sometimes. And I see that when I'm filming people and filming myself, is that like that comes out where I'm like, oh, I said that wrong, or I look like this, and so there's many elements, many dynamics to it, which you have to navigate. At the end of the day, I find it empowering that I don't know, how do I phrase this? That the internet moves pretty fast these days. There's a lot of content out there, and I find it empowering to sort of speak out and speak up in thinking that, hey, this is just a little dot in the ocean, little drop in the ocean, and yeah, it's rippling out there, but move on. Life's too short. Don't get tied up in it. Don't get caught up in it, and just move on.
Yeah, I think that's where I've come to just with my own business things. It's like no one really cares, but I care enough, and that's okay. And the people that see it, like in the sense of it's such a balance of care enough. Like I'm not going to personally roll out of bed and then film a reel to post in that position. Like because it's like, well, that's not my not even my brand. That's not authentic to me because I'm probably not talking at that point in the morning, like that kind of thing. It's like that's not my urgency to do that. But there is an element of if something, like if a piece of clothing isn't sitting right, or like half the year I'll have a fringe, not in summer obviously, and it's like every now and then this is just more because I know that it happens. I'll film something and be like, oh, that is really noticeable to me. And like no one is caring.
Yeah.
And it's like, let's just get it out there because what is more important? Like, how that piece of hair is sitting, or just actually what's coming through in my voice and in what I'm trying to share, and going back to that, gift other people with that.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Nobody cares as much as you think they care. About your hair or about your clothes or about whatever.
The ones that do are trolls anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. What's something, um, or rather, because you sort of, your work speaks to an element of using emotional intelligence in communicating via these stories and these brain stories. And I love a good brain story video. Like, it's so immersive, and if it's done well, I feel coated in it in a really nice way where I'm like, oh, I really understand their tone. I really understand what they're about.
Mm.
Like, how do you view the position of, or even ensure the position of, emotional intelligence in, like, in this world, I guess, through these videos?
Yeah. So from a producer's point of view or from a director's point of view, trying to get the best out of clients and businesses and brands and charities to express what they do.
Yeah.
It's from me, it's being self-aware. To me, emotional intelligence is awareness in general, from aware of the person you're talking to and aware of yourself and how you're reacting to things, how long you're being quiet for and listening. Are you reading their body language? I think to me, that's emotional intelligence, and that's the power of it. And back to what we were talking about before, keeping them, it makes them calm. It gives them a complete sense of being calm if you're calm, and if you're not just filling the space with chat, you can just relax into the space, calm down, and make sure they're feeling calm and ready to talk as well. So um and like we were saying, when you walk into a room with cameras and lights, you need to be really aware of so many things, from practical things like cords to trip over
Yeah.
to like, oh, I'm noticing this person's a little bit agitated. Maybe they've had a bad morning. How can I help that or put them at ease? How can I break the ice, and just make it a little bit more calm and relaxed? Often people come into rooms like really shoulders are up high and they're all stiff and like, yep, okay, yeah, no, okay, what are we doing? What? Okay, sure, what do we do? And it's just going, calming it down and going, hi, how was your weekend? What'd you get? How was your morning? What'd you get up to? Have you got kids? Whatever it might be to break the ice, really changes the mood and the vibe. And I think that's emotional intelligence, is reading the room a little bit.
It is. It exactly that. It's reading the room and being mindful of how that is reflecting from you, but also from other people as well. And like, even it makes me think of photo shoots. I've done just a couple over the years, like business photo work related photo shoots, um, and I can't state how much of an awkward person I am when I'm doing something different, where I'm like, what am I meant to be doing? And the best thing that any of those, like in that case, photographers have done for me is just made me laugh. Like, it's just like, we'll joke about, like, they're like, you look a little awkward. I'm like, I feel a little awkward, don't worry. And then like we'll joke about it. And some of those are my favorite photos.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it's like, oh, that's me. And now I get to show my clients or my audience, literally it's me. That's all I'm doing, is just like, usually just laughing. Like, well, not
Yeah.
always, like, that just shows part of like my personality, who I am. And it makes a difference being on the other end. It makes a difference when someone like you or a photographer is able to do that.
Yeah, for sure. With photography, and you just mentioned it there, it's the moments in between the moments. It's the photos in between the photos, I always say. So in that instance, they'll probably saying, do this pose, and you do the pose, and then you go, you look awkward, you'll have a laugh, and then that's when the photo happens. That's the moment. So it's
Yeah.
actually the one in between the photo that
Yeah.
is the winner every
Yeah.
time. And it's breaking the ice, having a laugh, and your true self comes out.
And just reaching out and having that moment of connection and acknowledgement, I think, as well, of, hey, how, like, it was in this case, it was her version of going, hey, how are you feeling in this moment? Because, and then we were able to relax about it. I think it's great that you've clearly tapped into that with your audience as well.
I'll tell you a funny story. Many years ago, when I was working in London, I was just a camera assistant, a young guy, just charging batteries and helping out the head cameraman where possible. And we were filming a piece with Gwyneth Paltrow at a London hotel. And it was literally a 30-second piece where she spoke down the camera like this about an anniversary of a bag she was an ambassador for. But we set up all day for that 30 seconds in this hotel room. And there were people running around the room, getting champagnes and getting this chair organized and saying, this is Gwyneth's favorite chair. Like she loves this chair. We've specially got it in. By the way, the chair wasn't even in the frame. You didn't even see the chair, but and the amount of fuss going on was incredible and an eye-opener. And so, 4 or 5 hours pass. The room's looking great. It's all lit. She walks in the room and there's probably 10, 15 people still milling about. And I've never seen a room change so much in the energy and the atmosphere of the space. As she walked in, people just didn't know where to look and just went quiet.
Oh no.
It was so strange. It was so odd. And you can imagine Gwyneth's probably been in that situation many times before, but
yeah,
walks in quietly, looking around, comes and sits into her seat, and yeah, I mean, and imagine she's used to it, but can you imagine how strange that would feel to walk into a room like that?
so strange. Like it would just make me like, what did I do? Like, what do you want me here? Like it would just be all of these immediate thoughts of, why did I change the vibe of the room? Like,
Yeah,
like, like it would make you feel so much more awkward
yeah,
if you weren't already trained and used to it, like I imagine she is. Like it would make you, just like it would make me feel super awkward and super just like when it's like when someone's watching you doing a reverse parallel park.
yeah.
Makes me feel like that. Whereas like,
Yeah.
stop watching me. Like
Who's watching this? And then when you nail it, it's great though.
yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, no one saw that. Damn it, but
yeah, that's right. So making sure, right from the get-go, when people walk into a room, now it doesn't matter if cameras are rolling or not, making someone feel comfortable from the get-go is everything, to set the tone for the rest of that afternoon.
Oh yeah, it's God's work, truly. It really is. It's so important. What then what then would you suggest to people trying to find their unique voice in a creative context? So, like they're there, they've arrived, they're feeling relaxed enough, but they don't really know what their voice is. What would you suggest?
I would suggest, so it doesn't happen in an instant. You can't walk into a room and go, I found my voice, I'm ready to go. So it's all the earlier work that you've done, I think, to get to that place. So there's 2 elements to this. There's the practical nature of feeling calm and relaxed in a space and ready to tell your story. You should hydrate. I've seen, I've got a story. A friend was an extra on a Matthew McConaughey film set, and he was out there doing push-ups before he goes on the camera. The people, of course, Matthew McConaughey would do that, but I've heard of people, doing star jumps and just lifting that vibration and that energy, that does work. It definitely shakes up any nervousness. So,
oh yeah, definitely. That sort of embodiment kind of shake out.
definitely. I've seen other people. Is it meridian points? They do this. I've worked with clients who slap themselves around. So whatever works for you, if whatever makes you get into that zone where you're ready to talk and present with confidence, go for it. So backtracking before that to find your unique voice, I think it's work on yourself. I think it's working with a coach. I think it's identifying your values and finding out who you are. They're big questions and they're big things to go through, but everyone should spend the time with that. And the closer you, and I shouldn't say closer because maybe you will never find it, but the more you're self-aware and just comfortable with who you are, then that's when you find your unique voice. That's where you need to be. And so I think that's work on yourself. I think that takes a bit of time. But at least committing to it, at least going, this year, I'm going to do that. I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to get a coach. I'm going to work on my values, work on what I truly want to do with myself and the message I want to tell others and help others with.
Mm.
Defining that, getting really clear on it. Yeah, that's your unique voice. It's sort of
Yeah.
finding it, I guess. You won't just walk into a room one day and go, oh, there it is. There's my unique voice. I
Mm.
think you've got to work at it and sort of discover it, unpack it yourself.
Oh yeah, and from experience, it takes trial and error as well. Like, if I think about the first few podcast episodes I ever did versus now, like this is almost 5 years later. God, 5 years later, I'm very different. I'm still me, but it's finding that voice. And you mentioned values. I've been talking about values within businesses and leadership a lot this week in particular, where I'm like, well, it becomes a values thing. Like, are you aware of your values so that you can actually express them in that way?
Yeah.
And I think that's what, like, especially in your work, I imagine, but I think that's what really speaks to audiences or to the people we lead or to whoever, is when we are clear on our values and we express them in that way, it makes it clearer to the people that we are speaking to.
Absolutely.
Mm.
I was listening to a podcast the other day, Kim Curtin's podcast, Unemployed and Afraid, I believe it's called.
Mm. I heard of that, yeah.
So I'll steal it off her, but she talks about the purpose trap, and it's a fine line. Yeah, a lot of people say, find your purpose, find your passion. That's what you've got to find. Yeah, that's true. And any work you do in that space is not wasted time. That's great, but people can become a bit obsessed with that and a bit daunted by that, a bit intimidated by that huge, I'm not on purpose. I'm not doing my life's work here. So relax. It's okay. Like, just find what brings you some joy, work away at that. If it doesn't work, move slightly this way or that way. And I think that's all work to find your unique voice. I think the self-awareness to be working on it and putting a mirror on yourself, and to connect all of that back to video and brand stories. Even let's say that we film ourselves and we tell our brand stories to a camera or to a person off camera. That video never has to see the light of day.
Yeah.
But it can be a really great practice, and not enough people do that. People think that if you have to film, it's final, it's done, cut, put that out to the world. Like, it's great practice to just film, watch it back. Oh yeah, that's how I look. I would like to say that a little bit better. So yeah, practice makes perfect.
Yeah. Do you find that some people go, like, swing too hard in the opposite direction? Only because I know of people who do that. Not me. I'll get to a point where I'm like, sick of doing this. This will do. But like, they swing too hard in the opposite direction of wanting to redo every little bit, even though you're like, it genuinely is great.
Yes. Yep. You've definitely find those clients who want to change things around, but we do the work up front so that doesn't happen or happens. Yeah. In a camera sense and production sense, we do a lot of pre-production where we map out the questions and the answers and all of that sort of stuff, and the shots, and make sure it's all aligning with the person. So yeah, we want to avoid that at all costs, but yeah, there's definitely some people you can't avoid that with as well. So
so the structure and the framework is that you're like, okay, here's your foundation, just rest on it and it's going to be okay, I promise. Like, because I think some people are always, like, as humans are, we're always going to be self-critical of something at some point, so it's I think you're doing more than just filming. I think you're doing so much more than just filming. You're actually like, you're holding this space for people to sometimes be confronted with what they think are the most rawest, vulnerable parts of them, because the camera will see it, all of that. This is what other people see, so it's
for sure. And I think from experience, I've learned to identify those people pretty early on as well. People who are really self-critical, and you can sort of see it early on, and that's okay. That's totally fine. And so it's nurturing that person in that space on the day, I would say, rather than later. If you film something and then show them later, I think on the day you go, look, you look great. You might need to show them parts and go, what are you thinking? I think you look good, but if there's anything you would like to improve, like go for it. So taking them on that journey, holding their hand helps.
Yeah.
And then they feel nurtured and supported, and they're happy with the end result because you did it together.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
What is something that you would do differently now than a former version of you with the perspective of experience? Probably time as well.
So in regards to owning a business?
Yeah, in regards to owning a business, it was sort of kept broad on purpose, but yeah, in regards to owning a business or in your work, in any of your experience that has sort of led to who you are
Yeah. Well, in regards to the business, I would get a coach earlier on.
now.
I've had coaching probably for the last maybe 5 or 6 years, but I would have done that straight away. Well, a mentor, a coach, whatever that it looks like, whatever you can afford, whatever you can do at your point in time, I would do that earlier just to have someone there. Even if it's the wrong person, that's okay. Find another person. Go through that trial and error of finding someone who resonates with you and is going to be able to support you. So definitely would do that earlier on. I would try and build a team earlier. I tried to do it all myself for a long time. And I have a team now, and it's been the game changer. It's hard, but there's ways to do it. And I would just be in that mindset from an earlier stage.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're confined by our own beliefs. And my belief in the beginning was, I don't want a big business. Like, I just want to have a camera and travel around the world and take photos and do videos. And I like this. Like, this is fun. And I just reached a ceiling basically, and a point where, if I want some kids and if I want to have a home life, this doesn't really align with that anymore. I need to change this up. So yeah, I didn't have that wisdom at the time, but so having a team is great. What would I do differently? I think they're the main ones that come to mind. I feel so grateful for my journey, so it's hard to say I would want to change too much up because it's been amazing.
Learn you can appreciate it because you're like, oh, that taught me that.
Yeah, for sure. And in my line of work and in your line of work, we get to meet and talk with so many people from all walks of life. So yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. Yeah, it would change a thing.
Well, how can or where can people find you, follow you, and contact you about your work or work?
Yeah. People can find my business Rawlins Media on Instagram at Rawlins Media. That's RAWLENS Media. And the website's www.rawlinsmedia.com. And I'm Tom Rawlins, RAWLINS.
That's very convenient. I did notice that. I'm like, oh, that's such a convenient name for someone who, like, the business name makes perfect sense for what you do. Like, it's
little play on words. Can be hard over the phone sometimes trying to explain, but that's us. You can find me there, and that's where I hang out. It's a lifestyle business, so I feel like it's my job, but it's also my life. I just love what I do, and it sort of goes hand in hand.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. This has been really such a nice reminder, I think, also as we begin the year of I don't know, I guess being more like authentically ourselves. And I try not to use that word because it feels a little overdone, but yeah, being more, showing more of who we are and letting the light in us and what we have to give to the world, let it actually be seen. So I see you doing that, and I think it's great. So I really appreciate you coming on and having a chat with us.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me, Jess. I feel appreciated, and I really enjoyed that chat. Thank you.